Hello everyone, my name is Rochelle Innocent and I'm the founder and CEO of Project Purpose. Welcome to our channel. Our community is focused on fostering the intellectual and character development in children. We do this through our parent-child workshops that are focused on 4 themes: autonomy, self-efficacy, compassion, and self-concept, in order to cultivate grit, perseverance, and resilience in each child. And we are so thrilled to be offering one of the first of its kind digital, virtual, and continuous learning environments, enabling parents and children to connect from all around the world. At Project Purpose, our overarching mandate is to renew and rebuild family, community, and relationship. Our different social media platforms provide us with an opportunity to have discussions and to create space on all topics that relate to family, community, and relationship with ourselves as well as with others, with a primary focus on mental health and education. More precisely, the ways that the institutions of mental health and education play a role and have played a role in our societies at large. These discussions and debates provide us with an opportunity to think critically about what needs to change within these structures for us to live up to our bold slogan: support, protect, and empower each child through youth-focused development, better known as leadership in juvenescence. We recognize that in valuing our children's leadership potential, this translates as recreating and co-creating environments, both socially and politically, that will enable our children to thrive. Now, for those of you who are particularly keen on the topic, we also write thought pieces every other Sunday. We actually dropped the thought piece this past Sunday, so definitely be sure to meander over to the website and check out our online content. Now, if it is the case that you are looking for a listening alternative, well, we're available on 12 different podcast platforms for your listening leisure, and we've provided you with access to the links in the description down below. Now, as is the convention, be sure to subscribe, hit that post notification bell so that you are aware of every time we post. And of course, if you like these conversations and you want to keep them going, like, comment, and share this segment. Let's get into it. Hello, les meufs et les mecs. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another segment here on Project Purpose. For those of you who are new, we cover topics that relate to mental health, mental wellness, and education on a week-by-week basis. And today our topic of discussion is mental wellness. And on the conversation around mental wellness, I'm going to be talking about how we preserve our overall sense of well-being and positivity by being very cognizant and intentional on the things and the narratives that we focus on and the narratives that we just do away with. And the narratives that I'm going to be talking about specifically in today's session are the assumptions that people make about us. Now, this is something that I think is really important, and I don't think that it's a conversation that really layers into like education necessarily or mental health. This is just a fact of life that I have learned, that I've adopted, that I've integrated, that has really helped me maintain a pretty positive outlook in life, regardless of some of the riffraff and some of the noise that comes my way. And so I think the reason why I have something to speak to and speak on as it relates to this topic is because when it comes to having narratives spun about you, I think that depending on who you are, depending on the spaces that you grew up in, your environment, you're gonna come across a lot of different things that are gonna be a little bit jaw-dropping or eyebrow-raising. So I've learned altogether, and I think I've said this frequently since we've been live and online, is that I don't think anyone's opinion of me is any of my business. I don't care to know. I do not actively seek out other people's impressions or opinions about me, because that's for them to hold on to. It has absolutely nothing to do with the way that I inform my sense of self-identity, my evolving sense of self-identity. I think some people sometimes are trapped in this view of you based on what you've done, for sure, how you presented in the past, but sometimes it's just based on their own filter. Like they have a filter of cynicism, or they have a filter of negativity, and they look at you through those filters and through those lenses. And I really do try my best to not run interference with a lot of people's narratives, because it can sometimes really shatter your happy place, like your sense of well-being, your sense of happiness, your sense of fulfillment, because it can be something that's really very jarring. So I think that, though, despite the fact that I really don't think it's any of my business and I do my best to avoid it, sometimes you're confronted with people's assumptions. And how do you deal with it when that's the case? And like, how do you bounce back from an assumption that like could be actually truly very offensive? And I can talk about this because I've had conversations with people who have had the desire to disclose like their initial assumptions about me. And I've never felt complimented by people's initial assumptions. A lot of their assumptions are like way left field. Like they have absolutely nothing to do with how I carry myself, with how I see the world around me, with the things that I value, with the things that I believe in. And sometimes I have to stop myself from wondering like, how is it that I'm showing up in these spaces that's giving people these impressions? Because I really don't think that it's about me. I really do think that when people can look at you and sum you up so negatively, so quickly, that has so much to do with them. And I think that it's really important that you put the accountability and the ownership of people's narratives back on their shoulders and you learn to brush it off. And I have had to learn that lesson, that I'm not going to do the song and dance where I hear an impression, I so viscerally believe that it's wrong that I'm going to go out of my way to change that impression. I think people believe what they find convenient to believe about you. And some people believe really harsh, really critical, really judgmental things because they want to believe those things about you. They prefer to see you in that light. And there's a why behind that, I'm sure someone can unpack. But I've learned that for my own sense of well-being, for my own sense of like maintaining my sense and my state of positivity, that's just like a Pandora's box that I'm really not going to open. If I really do dig deep into it, it has very little to do with me and a lot of what I represent in other people's schema, right? So I think that there are so many things that I could potentially represent in other people's schema that have to do with their previous experiences or with some of the rhetoric that they heard growing up, or with their own history, their personal history or their cultural history, all of those different things that play into the way that they see me and why they're often very shocked that I am not what it is that they assumed. And I think that this is really important because a lot of the times when I'm having these people disclose this to me is because they're so utterly shocked or so surprised that my behavior was so different from what they expected that they were forced to reassess their belief about me. And I think that while that is a win in and of itself, like I think it's great that they gave me, or that they kind of held space to see me as I was, but it again isn't my issue. And oftentimes these moments of disclosure where they're like, hey, like these are the things that I believed about you, this is what I believe now. Like I think a lot of the times, like when they disclose this, they assume that I feel like more proximity to them because they've disclosed this information to me. But I think that because I can feel fairly offended and affronted by the things that are said, that it really has the adverse effect. Like I'm never going to criticize or to ostracize someone for their disclosure. But if I feel that your belief of me was really very harsh, for me, that is enough for me to want to maintain a certain degree of space permanently. And I think that that might be true for most people. Like I think that if people really have it within them to look at people and criticize and judge them so harshly right out of the gate, like for me, that inclination is not a trait that I find entirely attractive, especially because I go into spaces like super curious, super open, reserving judgment, right? And I think all of us can be really judgmental. We can have these, fears or these apprehensions. And like, I'm not going to say that I walk into a room or when I go into a different country or when I travel that I don't have apprehension. Like I think that apprehension is me recognizing some of the rhetoric, some of the narrative, some of the stereotypes, some of the history, some of the prejudice that could potentially come into play, but then choosing not to act on those, right? So it's like reserving judgment. It's like, I want those not to be how I meet people. I don't want to have people, go through hoops because of the preconceived notions that I have about them. I want everyone to have the equal opportunity to really present their individuality to me without having to deal with this storm of negative jargon. And a lot of it is like negative rhetoric. And because I really do make a point to give people that grace, I expect that grace, right? And even if it's an unspoken expectation, where that expectation has been broken, it will never translate as proximity. And I think that that also lends to my sense of well-being, because for me, my well-being is much more about the kinds of beliefs that I feel align with my own around other people and other people's journeys and other people's stories, and how we give other people grace and space to become, right? And I think if I'm connecting with you, if I'm meeting with you, knowing that I'm trying to put my best foot forward, knowing that I'm really curious and open and excited to meet new people, but you've pegged me right out of the gate as, let's list some of these opinions off as an airhead. I get an airhead a lot, and I really do not know what it is about the way that I present myself that makes me out to seem like an airhead, but I'm absolutely not an airhead. No offense to people who claim that identity, but I have a lot going on. I have a lot to share, a lot to say, a lot of opinions that, can lend to a really insightful and in-depth conversation. So I find that like when people look at me and they immediately think that I have nothing really going on between the ears, like I find that like deeply offensive. And I would rather just not know that that was your initial impression. But a lot of people who have had this initial impression feel inclined to share it with me. It's okay that you keep it yourself. You don't need to share it. It's really, truly very okay. Another one that I find truly, really offensive is that they can beat me up. And like this one also for me is a bit of a flag because I don't look at people thinking, can I dominate this person or can I beat this person up? So like when people come to me and they look at me, they're like, you look like someone I could easily beat up. Like this is really, it's a concerning revelation because I'm oftentimes just kind of meandering about doing my own thing. So I don't think that I've done anything that would warrant someone like visualizing me in a very violent setting where, I'm getting myself pummeled. So that's also a revelation that for me, like one would assume that it creates proximity, like, oh, that's what you thought, ha ha ha. No, like it's uncomfortable of a conversation to have and it will change the way that like we engage moving forward. And I think a lot of the things that people don't understand is when you become transparent with your assumptions, if you don't first check your assumptions before you speak them out loud, they have the power to shift and change the dynamic you have with other people. Your assumptions are going to be held against you in one way, shape, or form. I think it's going to change some of the dynamics, some of the relationships you have. It says a lot about how each of us grows and says a lot about our characters and a lot about the degree and threshold of forgiveness that we have for other people, or the threshold and the level of flexibility we have in our thinking that we might be wrong, right? So I think that it's very important to me that I see in the assumptions that people have of others, even in the way that they present those assumptions, that they recognize that there's room for error, right, in their judgments, that their judgments might not be accurate and they are looking to question rather than validate those judgments. And again, like these are conversations that I'm pulled into, and if I'm pulled into it, we'll have it. But I prefer to stay away from it because I think other people's assumptions, again, tell me more about them and also the future of them and I together, right? Like I don't feel inclined. I don't think that it's healthy for anyone to dig around for the assumptions that people have about them. If you really like scratch the surface of those assumptions, they really play into a lot of like ugly prejudice, stereotypes, generalizations, like things that really lack depth and lack complexity in thought to really be what plays into how you see someone you don't know, right? So I think that that has helped me when thinking about assumptions and thinking about my behavior around the assumptions that other people have. I think that it has also helped me like protect my sense of well-being. I'm on social media now and you still get met with some of these assumptions that you just have to like laugh off and let roll off your shoulders because it just shows you like how confident people can be in their ignorance, right? And that's, I think, the underlying message of this video or of this segment. Like I think that take it as a nugget of truth, take it as a nugget of wisdom, that there are a lot of people who are very confident in their positions despite the fact that those positions are built in ignorance. And I think that if someone has a position that they are willing to turn into a platform and willing to have open dialogue about, and as you're talking you recognize, well, wow, your position, your point of view is really well founded in ignorance, that is not a place I would ever want to put myself in. I would never want to be the kind of person where as everyone's discussing, people recognize that like my point of view is really uninformed, it's misinformed, and it's built in a lot of really ignorant beliefs that I probably should work on as part of my personal growth journey. So that's the feedback that I give to you. That's the perspective that I want to share with you to support, protect, and empower yourselves, and also to shield your sense of mental well-being. I think mental well-being means we filter out the things that could harm us or could really make the day less joyful, make the day less pleasant. And I think that a lot of what can really turn a day over on its head is when we hear something negative and we let it root. We internalize it and we let it really knock us off our kilter. And so I'm here to say, don't do that, especially not with the assumptions and the generalizations that people have. Like I think as we become more digitalized, as our digital footprint grows and more people feel inclined to comment and to have an opinion on who we are, remember that all of those opinions, even if there are some of them that you feel like really check the mark, they're all based in ignorance, right? If people haven't had the opportunity to get to know you, if you have not had intimacy with the people who are positioning themselves for or against you, like those opinions are still all very misinformed, regardless of how you react to them. So treat them all the same, not necessarily with indifference, but with a grain of salt. And so hopefully that was helpful to you. That is something, or nuggets of wisdom that you can take on with you so that you can preserve your sense of mental wellness and maintain a happy, positive outlook in life. So before letting you go, I would be remiss if I didn't let you know that we will be going live at least twice a month, every month for the foreseeable future on our Facebook page. So definitely be sure to tune in. Now, these events are paid events. So if you do see yourself participating in our community on an ongoing basis, then I do suggest that you take a look at one of our package plans. Yes, so we do offer package plans over and above our live events, as well as access to webinars and workshops largely focused on self-mastery over and above these events. So we do hope that you participate. We are growing. We're growing to 1K, so definitely be sure to subscribe, be part of our Game Changer community, being the change that you want to see, giving us a small role to play in your journey. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I look forward to chatting with all of you very soon. We'll talk to you later.